Hey guys, if you've been following my channel for a while, you're probably aware of an ongoing Scrabble construction challenge I have, where the goal is to create the highest scoring possible Scrabble game that ends in a tie and where every single play is a valid bingo. That challenge is still ongoing and be on the lookout for an update soon. However, today I'll be talking about a different challenge I recently introduced. This challenge is basically the opposite of the high scoring challenge. It is the low scoring challenge, where the goal is to create the lowest scoring tie game possible. There are a couple of rules to keep it interesting. Rule number 1 is you're not allowed to pass unless that player whose turn it is has 0 valid legal plays whatsoever. And rule number 2 is you have to empty the bag. So that means you have to play at least 86 tiles before you can end the game. And the existing record was a game that ended in a 42-42 tie. This game was submitted to me by Mitch and Hannah Poplack, and I made a video on it a couple of weeks ago. However, that record has been shattered, and it's been shattered by none other than two of our favorite constructors, Amaranth and lovemathboy, working as a team. So here today, I present to you now the lowest combined scoring tied Scrabble game that uses these constraints. Let's jump right into this masterpiece. Amaranth was first and had CORTU double blank. So he's got a plethora of available bingos here that score 70 points, such as retouch and country. However, none of these options appealed to Amaranth. Instead, he decided to play NE for 0, getting rid of both of his blanks. Which actually makes a lot of sense if you think about it, because after all, who wants these pesky blanks? They're worth 0 points, all of his other tiles are worth points, so he should just get rid of them as soon as possible and look to score more points with his remaining tiles. So, makes total sense to me. lovemathboy, now with this rack, actually also has an available bingo. He has a very nice 9-letter word of ibogaines through the NE that Amaranth just played to open the game. However, he makes a very sharp decision here. Instead of playing ibogaines as a bingo, he plays ibogain for 10 points. Because while it does score 51 fewer points than bingoing, he holds his ever-valuable S. And we all know that the S is worth way more than just 51 points. It's that good of a tile. Amaranth has drawn multiple playable bingos again, the highest scoring of which is outscorn for 80. He could also play something like croutons through that same N for 60. And just like lovemathboy on the last turn, he makes a very sharp decision. Instead of croutons, he plays crouton for 9. Again, giving up 51 points, but as we discussed before, holding the ever-valuable S easily worth the 51-point sacrifice. So both of these players playing absolute genius-level Scrabble so far, and it gets better. With this rack, lovemathboy has some playable bingos yet again. He could play episodic to the C, Presidio through the R, or biopsied from the B, all of which score pretty well. However, he does none of these. He gives up a bunch of points by playing opioids through the O and crouton for 10 points. And yes, he does give up 74 points, but he blocks some really big threats. In particular, let's say he plays episodic. Amaranth, who just played 6 tiles, could have basically anything. And with that G and ibogaine sitting in the middle of 2 double word scores, Amaranth could maybe play Quagmire for 130 points. And that would be absolutely devastating to lovemathboy. So lovemathboy recognizes he absolutely has to stop that threat at all costs, and he plays opioids using the O in that word to obstruct the G. Excellent play for lovemathboy. And amazingly, Amaranth has the same exact rack. So does he play a bingo like episodic on this turn? Absolutely not. He also plays opioids through the O and ibogaine, and this is a great play for 2 reasons. Number 1, it deals a significant amount of psychological damage, you have to understand, to play the same exact word that your opponent played on the very next turn. This is sure to throw lovemathboy off on his next move significantly. And number 2, while lovemathboy's play of opioids did block the potential for 8-letter double-double bingos through that G and ibogaine, such as Quagmire, as I was mentioning before, Amaranth realizes to his horror that 9-letter double-doubles through the O and the G on the E column are a possibility. lovemathboy could have drawn something like orangutan through the disconnected O and G, which would score a whopping 90 points and get a lot more style points for being a disconnected 9. So Amaranth knows he absolutely has to address that threat, and his play of opioids does so very effectively. Now, lovemathboy is up a point, and he actually has 214-point bingos available on this play. Interestingly, they're the same word, and they're from a tile that ends the same word. He can play sextings for 114 from the S in opioids on the 4 row, or he can play sextings for 114 from the S in opioids on the D column. However, he does neither of these. Instead, he makes a 109-point sacrifice to play angs for 5 on the 11 row, with the amazing idea of setting himself up for a huge X play down the A column, with something like exits or exist, which would score a huge number of points. So yes, you do give up 109, but you gotta love the creativity of this setup. So Amaranth, now down 6 points, can bingo yet again. He can play Superize for a whopping 126. But is that what he does? Absolutely not. He finds Eerie for 5 points, creating yet another big opening down the H column to the bottom middle triple word score. And yes, he does give up 121, but he's got the super powerful Z tile. And if he can get that on a triple, especially while covering a double letter score both ways, that's going to be so good. So easily worth the sacrifice. Great foresight here from Amaranth. And he cuts his deficit to within 1. lovemathboy has yet another bingo scoring in the triple digits available on this turn, sexteens for 110, but you guys guessed it, that is not what he did. Nor, interestingly, did he play exits or exist, which he set up last turn with angs, as it seems like he logically would. Instead, he played east for 4 points, figuring, yeah, he could play exits or exist now, but he this way saves X sign on his next turn. And east also creates some more space on the right-hand side of the board. So he accomplishes 2 things at once here. Very, very creative stuff. Amaranth now actually does not have a bingo available, and elects to play Taos for 5 points, ridding himself of all of his one-pointers, which is exactly what you always want to do in Scrabble. One-pointers are terrible, because they're only worth 1 point. It was the same logic that made Amaranth's play of NE for 0 on his opening move so brilliant. You gotta get rid of those 0-point blanks and those 1-point tiles like E's, T's, and S's. They're terrible. Z's are awesome. B's are great. The D's only 2 points, so it could be better, but it's still better than the T, O, U, and E. So exactly what Amaranth wants to do. He gets rid of his one-pointers, he ties the game at 29, and he keeps his high-scoring firepower for a future turn. Let's see how it works out for him. lovemathboy once again could cash in with his X with X sign on the bottom left for 60, but that's not what he does. He forestalls it one more turn, this time playing oils for 4 to the S in opioids. And his logic here is that he now sets up another massive X spot because he's threatening X for a huge score down the J column on a future turn. So he figures, why cash in the X now when I can hold it and I'm guaranteed to have a big play with it in the future, and meanwhile I can take this opportunity to get rid of 3 more of those pesky one-pointers, and maybe even, best of all, in the endgame, I'll be able to play the X out of nowhere for a huge score and completely take Amaranth by surprise and come back for a stunning victory. So it seems like a great plan for lovemathboy. Meanwhile, on Amaranth's side, he could score pretty well with his Z now. He could play Zeram for 72, but that keeps a literally bad leave because that would keep the letters BAD. So he definitely cannot do that. Instead, he finds the play of a board for 10 points through the O in oils. Yes, it's a 62-point sacrifice, but it doesn't keep a quite literally bad leave, which is quite literally a bad idea. It also gets rid of even more 1-point tiles, keeping the very potent MZ leave on his next turn. Great, great decision here. And he retakes the lead 39-33. lovemathboy has an opportunity to score triple digits yet again, this time with Anorexic on the 2 row for 116. But as you guys can probably tell by now, that's not really his style. Instead, he plays Arrow for 4, creating yet another big X spot next to the E, and getting rid of 3 more 1-pointers, keeping up with the same logic he used so well on his previous turn. And we have a very similar decision now from Amaranth. He has a huge play with his Z, Matza for 78, but there's no rush. Instead, he plays Adnate, yes, giving up 70 points for now, but once again, prioritizing getting rid of those low-scoring tiles. He unloads 4 1-pointers and a 2-point D, which is absolutely amazing for his long-term chances. Because by keeping the M and the Z as long as he can, like I said, he'll be able to get the most out of them and hopefully surprise lovemathboy with a huge play in the endgame. So let's see how this works out. Amaranth is now pulling ahead. He is up 10 points, which is his biggest lead of the game so far. And lovemathboy has an absolutely sick bingo here of the disconnected antitoxin for 86. The best play by far, which of course lovemathboy finds, is into to the O in opioids for 4 points, with the idea, yet again, of setting up another big X spot with XI for a future turn. Amaranth, of course, still has his ever-powerful Z and wants to keep holding it as long as possible. He unloads even more low-scoring tiles with Gluier for 8 through the eye that lovemathboy just opened. And now Amaranth takes a massive 14-point lead. lovemathboy is now trailing 41 to 55. And, as typical, he gets rid of even more of this 1-point Drek, with Eloin keeping tax for a future turn. So he cuts his deficit to 9, and Amaranth, still with a Z, he got an F, which is really, really good, being it's a 4-point tile, and he hasn't seen one of those in a while. He actually decides to get rid of his M now. Since he has an F, he figures, alright, I have a 4-point tile, that's a lot better than a 3-point tile, I don't really need my 3-point tile anymore. So let's play Almoner, score 9 points, get rid of these horrible tiles, A, N, E, R, who wants those? They're only worth 1 point. I'll get rid of my M, because now I have my F and my Z, and there's tons of stuff I really want still in the bag. I see this Q and this J, those would be amazing. Those 2 Vs look really, really nice right now, and by playing off 5 tiles, I maximize my chances at getting all of those, so this is an absolutely fantastic play for Amaranth. lovemathboy has yet another triple-digit scoring bingo, this time Excretal for 104, but he wisely passes it up, sacrificing a mere 99 points to play Lent for 5. And I say a mere 99 points, because by keeping CEX, lovemathboy could potentially triple-triple for a huge score through the R in Almoner, if he's able to cover the triple word scores in the bottom left corner and in the bottom center of the board. And yes, he does give up 99 now, but if he can get a triple-triple, especially with his X, he's going to be scoring well over 200 points, maybe even 300 if he can get the X on that double letter score. So that 99 points is really going to feel like a small amount if he's able to hit it. Amaranth has drawn the Q, which he's absolutely thrilled about. You love to see the Q, especially in conjunction with tiles like the Z. One of the deadliest combos in Scrabble is the Q-Z combo, as we all know. So Amaranth definitely doesn't want to break it up with something like Corn, even though that would score 72 points. Instead, he plays Fens for 7. He does get rid of his F, but he keeps his Q and his Z, and he sees there's so much great stuff left. There's a J, which would be great. There's, again, those 2 Vs and those 2 Ws, all of which would go absolutely amazing with the Q and the Z already on his rack, so great decision here for Amaranth. lovemathboy has pulled some more great stuff. He got one of the Ws, he got a Y. His rack is finally starting to look like it might be conducive to some big scores. And he actually doesn't really have any great scores here, which is disappointing, so instead, he decides to play C for 5, figuring, alright, I get rid of my E. My E is like the worst tile on this rack, because along with the A, it only scores 1 point. Gotta get rid of these vowels, keep hoarding these high-scoring consonants, and unload them all at the same time for a massive play at the end. I get 5 points, I cut my deficit to 15. Seems reasonable enough. Amaranth now is loving this. He's got the J, the Q, and the Z all together. He's also got the F and the H. But he's got that pesky E and U. However, he finds a great way to get rid of both, namely O for 3 points. Yes, it's only 3, but he gets rid of his 2 worst tiles by far on his rack, keeps one of the most potent leaves you'll ever see in Scrabble, FHJQZ, just an absolute thing of beauty, and surely he's going to be able to score like 7,000 points on his next turn and just completely blow lovemathboy out of the water. lovemathboy now with another great rack with AMVVWXY. He loves all those tiles except the A. The M also not his favorite because it's only worth 3 points. And he gets rid of both of them with Moa for 5. Another great play, figuring also with this great a leave. Again, VVWXY, about as good as it gets in terms of 5-tile leaves in Scrabble. Figuring, well, maybe he's actually going to be the one who can score like 7,000 points with all of these high-point tiles on his next turn and completely crush Amaranth. Let's see. So, right now, Amaranth is up 13. It's 74 to 61. And he's got like his dream rack. He's got no tiles worth fewer than 4 points. He's got JQZ, he's got a K, and he's got FHH. So he's thinking here, worst case scenario, he should be getting several hundred points with a rack this strong, maybe even 1,000 if he can get an awesome play. And he's looking on the board, trying to find it, and then he realizes something alarming. He can't find any high-scoring plays. So he looks a little harder, and then he comes to an even more alarming realization. He can't find any plays. And it turns out, to his horror, there is not a single valid play that Amaranth can make with this rack. So that means he's forced to pass. And lovemathboy is now all excited. Oh, Amaranth had to pass. I've got VVWWXYY, all this powerful stuff. If he couldn't take advantage of his rack, surely I can. So lovemathboy is looking all over the board, trying to find a place to play all of these goodies for a huge number of points, and he's also getting concerned because he's not seeing it. And like Amaranth, after he looks for a while, he realizes he's also in trouble because he can't play anything either. There's also no single valid play on this board with any of the tiles on lovemathboy's rack. So what does that mean? Well, all he can do is pass. And this pattern, of course, continues. Amaranth passes, lovemathboy passes, Amaranth passes, and now, after lovemathboy passes one more time, that is going to be the 6th pass in a row. And what that means, guys, is that by the rules of Scrabble, after 6 consecutive passes, the game ends, and both players lose the sum of the tile values on their racks. So, this is Amaranth's rack. Going back to lovemathboy's rack here, he's got 6 4-pointers and an 8-point X. So that adds up to 6 times 4, which is 24, plus 8, which is 32. So lovemathboy is going to lose 32 points from his score of 61, cutting his score in less than half down to just 29, which is certainly not great. But Amaranth is feeling a little nervous on the other side of the board because now he's going to lose a ton of points. He's got JQZ and lots of other tiles. Let's add this up. JQZ alone are 28. The K, another 5, puts him at 33. And then 12 from the F, H, and H, 3 4-pointers, puts him at 45 total points on his rack that he's going to lose. So Amaranth, sitting at 74, is going to lose a huge chunk of that, dropping by 45.
And what's 74 minus 45?
Well, it's 29. So amazingly, this absolutely brilliant game ends with a final score of Amaranth 29, lovemathboy 29. And I think it's such a fitting endgame for this game, guys, because, I mean, this is one of the most brilliant games of Scrabble you'll ever see. Such strategic wizardry from both players, and really neither of them deserve to lose whatsoever. They both played such flawless Scrabble. It would have been such a shame to see one of them have to take a loss here, so can't argue with this result. Really love to see it. What a game by both of these players. Once again, 29-29, the final score in this one. Now, I hope it was obvious by now, but in case somehow it wasn't, I do want to clarify that yes, the last 15 minutes or so have been complete and utter satire. In honest terms, this was probably the worst played game of Scrabble that you'll ever see on my channel, and hopefully anywhere whatsoever. But just because this was not a masterclass in Scrabble strategy, in fact it was the complete opposite, does not mean this was not a masterclass in Scrabble construction. Once again, Amaranth and lovemathboy not only beating the existing record of 42-42, but completely blowing it out of the water with an amazing 29-29 score. And the cool thing is, it seems like it's going to be pretty much impossible to improve on this. You'll notice that the players collectively cannot possibly be stuck with any more points. J, Q, X, Z, and K, the only tiles worth more than 4 points, are on one of the players' racks. And the remaining tiles on the players' racks are all worth 4 points. So it's not mathematically possible for the players to lose a higher combined number of points in the endgame once the game ends. So the only theoretical way to get 28-28 would be to cover 2 fewer double letter scores than Amaranth and lovemathboy did in this game. Note that you'll need to cover not 1, but 2 fewer squares, as covering 1 fewer square would just result in 28-29, which is not a tie and violates the requirements of this challenge. So given how few double letter scores that Amaranth and lovemathboy have covered here, I think it's going to be nearly impossible, if not maybe completely impossible, to do this while covering 2 fewer double letter scores. That being said, if you are able to do it, and able to construct a 28-28 tie, using these constraints, then please get a hold of me ASAP. Please email me that game, and I would love to make another video featuring that construction, because that would be a truly awesome accomplishment. But that's about all I have to say for today, guys, so really hope you enjoyed this video. Once again, major shout out to Amaranth and lovemathboy for taking the time to go through all the work to find this awesome game. And once again, please do not take anything I said in this video as serious Scrabble advice. That's all for today, guys. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you soon for the next one. Bye-bye.